Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu einer weiteren Folge Chäos. Und ja, beim letzten Mal sind wir auf dem Dach vom O-Tower zusammengebrochen, nachdem die ganzen Journalisten und Kameraleute und sowas hochkamen. Und sind jetzt im Krankenhaus aufgewacht. That was exactly what had happened. I had lost consciousness. And then, how had I end up here at this hospital? I couldn't remember. At the very least, I didn't think I would come on my own, so Mary had been brought to the hospital by an ambulance. Hazuki-san was writing something on the clipboard she was wearing. She must have had a slip of paper clipped onto it. Was she writing about my condition? Also, ich bin der Meinung, er hat am Anfang Rimi gehört hetzen, als er hier im Krankenhaus aufgewacht ist. Aber anscheinend hat er sie noch nicht bemerkt. Das ist aber auch nur, was ich gerade so der Meinung bin. I checked what time it was and where the simplistic watch wrapped around her wrist. It was a little after 6 a.m. I'd slept for a really long time. Regardless, why had I been brought here? If Hazuki-san was here, then that meant this was my normal hospital. It wasn't like me being brought to a general hospital was particularly weird, but something still didn't feel right. Why was Hazuki-san coming to check on me? That question really bothered me. I mean, Hazuki-san was a psychiatric nurse. If Hazuki-san was coming to check on me, didn't that mean that the room I was in was also used by psychiatric patients? Klatschen wir uns mal die Delusion rein. Es ist nicht verschwommen. I must say, you really did give me a fright. Hazuki-san's eyes widened and she moved in to study my face closely. She made it sound as if she hadn't expected me to wake up. Was she disappointed? Was she trying to say that the world would be better off if a piece of garbage like me just stayed asleep for the rest of my life? When she said that to me, I really did start to wish I had never woken up. But then Hazuki-san gave me an explanation that was far different than what I had imagined.
あなたはこの1ヶ月近くずっと昏睡状態だったんですよ。原因不明のまま眠り続けていたんです。
What the hell? A month? When had I?
今日って。
落ち着いて聞いてくださいね。今日は10月28日です。
Daran kann ich mich tatsächlich nicht mehr erinnern, dass er einen Monat im Koma war, aber naja. Das ist halt viel zu lange her, seitdem ich geschaut habe, die Serie. The checked out. At least with what I had remembered. Which meant that it had been a whole month since I had witnessed the crucifixion. Ich bin gerade irritiert. War denn ISC auch so lange im Krankenhaus? Weil ich bin der Meinung, ich kann mich an was erinnern, dass die ISC im Krankenhaus besucht haben. Dann muss ISC ja, wenn das stimmt, auch dementsprechend lange im Krankenhaus gewesen sein.
Ah, そうだ。先生に伝えないといけませんよね。こんなにのんびり検温してる場合じゃなかったわ。
Andererseits, das ist wieder irgendeine Form von Delusion. Also kann es auch sein, dass er nicht einen Monat im Koma lag.
ここで待っていてくださいね。すぐに先生を呼んできますから。
After she finished rambling at me, Hazuki-san bolted out of the hospital room in a panic.
僕が1ヶ月昏睡状態だった。
I stared down at my palms, mumbling that to myself in a daze. That meant that everything that had happened in the past month had all been... Jetzt kapier ich's. Das war der Haken daran, okay. I couldn't believe I got slammed with the "it was all a dream" plot twist. But strangely enough, it didn't bother me. In fact, when she had told me it was all a dream, it would made everything surprisingly easy to understand. There was no such thing as these thoughts, or turning delusions into reality, or whatever else. All of it fell apart the second I actually thought about it. It had all been an illusion, a simple delusion that I had created. I was pretty sad that meeting Rimi had been just a dream too, but I wasn't being hunted by Shogun. I wasn't Japan's favorite punchline, and Nami hadn't been kidnapped either. Oh, thank God.
よかった。
My vision blurred, but when I looked upward to hold back the tears, Hazuki-san entered the room and her eyes widened up seeing me.
あら、西条さん、目が覚めたんですね。
A gentle smile accompanied her as she said that. I confused. Yay! Endlosschleife läuft! Die Disk hängt.
お体の調子はどうですか？
Hazuki-san held out the thermometer to me so naturally I couldn't help but take
体
it.
温を測ってくださいね。
As I took the thermometer from her, I gulped. It's the same. The exact thing from before was repeating. It was as if Hazuki-san had just walked into the hospital room for the first time. I nervously reached for the thermometer in my underarm. I was sure I'd put the thermometer in there just a minute ago, and yet there was nothing there. The thermometer disappeared. Had it been just a delusion? When did the delusion end and the reality start? Was me being hunted down by Shogun and becoming Japan's favorite punchline reality? My mood instantly took a turn for the worse.
昨日ご家族がお見えになっていたんですけど、西条さんの意識が戻らないので、日付が変わる頃にお帰りになりました。今日は診察時間が始まる頃にお母様が来るそうですよ。
I nodded in response, not having the energy to say anything back. Mom, I'm sorry for being such a disgrace. I'm an embarrassment to Japan, no, the entire world. The entire thing had been televised, meaning it had already spread to the entire country. I was sure my shameful behavior had been uploaded to YouTube as well. I had no idea why I had been made into the amazing Esper boy. And it didn't make any sense to broadcast my every move. And on the day of a huge earthquake, no less. When I was nothing but a boring otaku freak, it wasn't normal. Because of that, I couldn't help but think that everyone from back then was being mind-controlled by Shogun. But regardless of whether or not that was true, I had still publicly humiliated myself. It wasn't something I would escape after enduring a quick shitstorm online that would be forgotten about in a week. Was this it for me? Would I no longer be able to live in peace? Suddenly Nanami's face appeared in the back of my mind. I bit down on my lip and hugged my knees. Even if that was no longer attainable, as long as I could save Nanami, none of it would matter. Even if people from all over the world snickered at me and called me a pathetic loser for the rest of my life, it would make no difference to me. But I couldn't save her. I couldn't even do that much. Tears began to fall from my eyes.
どうしました？どこか痛みます？
Shaking my head over and over, I kept on crying. Nanami was dead, and she was never coming back. It was all my fault, all my fault, all my fault. Because of how worthless I was, because of how much of a fucking loser I was, Nanami was dead. Back on the rooftop, I had given up so easily on obtaining the D-Sword. I had Saratan's seductive voice in my ear. But that was just my pathetic self pretending to be someone else. I was the one who had made the decision. I had made myself look like a pitiful victim. I had chosen to sacrifice Nanami so that I would survive. I hated myself, how fucking pathetic I was. If only I tried just a little bit harder. I told myself that I had given up of my own volition. But now that it was all over, I regretted every single thing I'd done on that rooftop. I was absolutely disgusted with myself. She was gone. Nothing could save her now. And yet, even still, I couldn't help but think that if I could just go back to that rooftop and I just tried a little bit harder. But I knew that, even if I actually could go back, I would just give up all over again, finding some other excuse to get me out of it. That was just who I was. A completely useless, irredeemable piece of shit.
ナナミ、ごめん。ナナミ。
Hazuki-san rubbed my back in an attempt to comfort me. I was a useless sack of shit to the very end. I was even calling problems for nurses that had nothing to do with me. The tears refused to stop.
何か後悔していることがあるんですね。でもきっと妹さんも許してくれますよ。
How did she know that Nanami was my sister? Sie war gestern da. Even that aside, the formulaic consolation she was giving me was the last thing I needed right now. I'm sorry, Hazuki-san, but no one else can understand how I feel. I hated myself, I was pathetic, did nothing but take advantage of everyone else, and only ever thought about myself. The world would be better off without me. Maybe I should just end it
昨
all.
日もしきりに西条さんのことを心配していましたよ。とても可愛らしい妹さんですね。
what was she talking about?
ナナミは、妹は死にました。
She had been kidnapped by Shogun, her hand had been cut off, then she had been imprisoned somewhere. And in the end she had died all alone and afraid. When I imagined it, it felt like my heart was being torn into dozens of tiny pieces.
そうなんですか。ごめんなさい。勘違いしてしまって。
All my life I thought that Nanami was annoying. Also, we had been siblings for 16 years. Even though she had called me a jerk more times than I could count, she was always worried about me. The reason why she had always nagged me so much was because she had been trying to help me break free from my toxic lifestyle. Whenever she had brought me food from our parents' house, she didn't just give it to me and leave. She had always tried to share it with me. Normally, if a girl her age had an otaku freak for a brother, they would never associate with him. And while the things she had said didn't make her the easiest person to be around, she would still talk to me, and she would listen too. Whenever I'd been at school, she never avoided me. No, she would actually approach me. No matter what, Nanami had always treated me, a vile otaku freak virgin, like her brother, like a human being. Her mere existence had helped me more than I ever knew. But realizing that did me no good now. It was too late.
だとしたら鬼ってどういう意味なのかしら。
Huh? I looked up, unable to properly comprehend what I had just heard. As my eyes were blurry with tears, I couldn't see Hazuki-san's face properly. What had she just said?
眠ってる西条さんを鬼と何度も呼んでいたから、その印象が強くて。
There was only one person who called me that.
それ、本当ですか?
Vaulting out of my bed, I pressed Hazuki-san for an answer.
はい、何がです？
ナナミが、妹がナナミがここに来てたんですか?
いえ、はっきりお名前を聞いたわけでは。
僕のこと鬼って呼んでたんですね。
ええ。
ナナミは今どこに？
ですから昨日はお帰りになりましたけど、西条さんのお母様と一緒に。
怪我とかしてませんでしたか？
はい。いえ、特には。
元気だったんですね。ナナミは元気だったんですね。
はい。いえ、ナナミさんかどうかは分かりませんけど、昨日いらしていた女の子は元気そうでしたよ。
Nanami was alive. From everything Hazuki-san had said, it had to be true. I sat down on the bed utterly dazed. But how? Shogun had said that he wouldn't give Nanami back to me until I completed his quest. Had he just released her out of pity? Or had Nanami escaped on her own? Mir fiel gerade auf, ich hatte die ganze Zeit die Maus in ihren Ohr. But then how would it explain the hand that I had been sent to me? According to Hazuki-san, Nanami hadn't even been injured.
もしかしたら君の家に送ったあの手首は 別人のものかもしれないよ。
What he had said, it hadn't been a lie. He had played me. I had been dancing right to his tune. Shogun had deceived me. No, that didn't matter right now.
そっか。
I see, so that was it. It was all coming together. Nanami had never been kidnapped at all. Back when I had been at Orphan trying desperately to grab the D-Sod. Nanami must have been relaxing back at home reading manga or going out to karaoke with her friends so she could show off her shitty singing voice or doing whatever else she liked to do. I was crying, but I couldn't help but laugh.
西条さん？
将軍にまんばなんという壮大な釣りだよ。
She was alive. Nanami was alive. I could see that Dreadicuz face of hers again. I could hear that obnoxious shrill voice of hers again. The mere thought was enough to bring me a deep sense of relief and an intense joy that rose from the bottom of my heart.
よかった。
I couldn't stop crying, but the tears weren't the tears of regret I'd been crying earlier.
よかった。
I was an utterly useless pile of shit, but I couldn't help it. The day before I'd given up without being able to do anything. But even so, as long as Nanami was alive, I didn't wish for anything else. The whole world could mock me until the end of time. For all I cared, I was overjoyed. Thank God she was safe. Yet another meeting had been called in the main conference room of the Shibuya Police Department, joining one of multiple others that had been held today. The exhausted, fed-up detectives all worked hard. I wondered how many more hours worth of unproductive meetings they would be forced to sit through. Matsunaga was about to start hearing the reports from each investigator when suddenly Ben hesitantly stood up and raised his hand.
ちょっといいですかね。
なんだね。
Inquisitive eyes and expressions landed on Ben, not just from Matsunaga but from Suba and the detective sitting next to him as well. Ben smiled his usual flippant smile, quickly bowed his head and looked around the room.
先日インターネット上に投稿されたいわゆる集団ダイブの映像についてなんですが、実はちょっとした発見をしまして。
え？
The surprise on Suba's face was evident. In all likelihood he was surprised. After all, Ben had examined the video without saying a word to him. It was not because he had wanted to keep it a secret from him, however,
バ
no.
ン警部補。君は確か貼り付けの捜査担当だったはずだが、なぜ集団ダイブについて調べている？
This was the reason. Ben had disregarded the orders he had been given by his boss, the head of the investigation team. If Ben had involved Suba, a promising new detective, his partner would have inevitably been harshly rebuked by the boss. Ben wanted to avoid this.
まあとりあえず見てくださいって。
With a chuckle, Ben took out 2 enlarged photos from a file he held in his hand and attached them to the blackboard with magnets.
これはどっちも集団ダイブの現場となったコーネリアスタワー屋上の写真です。
Da fehlt ein Turm. Beziehungsweise entweder fehlt dort ein Turm oder hier ist ein Turm zu viel.
右の写真は例のミュウツベ投稿映像から抜き出したもの。左のは昨日の夜私がタワー屋上に行って撮ってきたものになります。何か違いに気づきませんか？
Yup. The entire conversation began to stir.
背景がね、違うんです。投稿映像のカメラは北東へ向かってる。5人が転落したのが北東だったから間違いない。で、映像では3分29秒から約15秒間、カメラが左右へ大きく触れるんですが、その時に東に向いた時の映像が この右側の写真なわけです。コーネリアスタワーの東、つまり六本木方面ですね。東京タワーが夜景の中にしっかり映ってる。赤いから目立ちますね。でもね、もう一つよく目立つものが映ってないんですよ。
Yep. Ben's eyes narrowed as he complimented beard with his finger, and then a wry smile appeared on his lip.
六本木ビルズですよ。
It was true, the lights of Roppongi builds could not be seen in the photo yet taken from the uploaded video. But in the photo Ben had taken the day prior, the lights of Roppongi build in many windows were very clearly visible along with Tokyo Tower.
で、たまたま見つけたんですが、コーネリアスタワーのホテルロビーにタワー完成当時のパネルが展示してありましてね。そのパネルの一つがこれ。
Ben retrieved a new photo from the file and pinned it next to the previous two. It was also a picture of Roppongi area taken from the rooftop of the tower. But it was not a picture taken at night, it was one taken at day.
六本木ビルズが映ってますよね。建設中ですが。
The commotion in the conference room grew even louder. Matsunaga meanwhile remained silent as he stared at the photo with a stern
コーネリ
expression.
アスタワーの完成は2001年。六本木ビルズの完成は2003年。タワー完成当時の写真では当然ながら六本木ビルズは建設中でまだ高さもほとんどない。だが集団ダイブが起きたのは今年2008年。
Yep.
映ってなきゃおかしいですよね。六本木ビルズ。ちなみに、投稿映像に細工された形跡はなかった。
つまり何が言いたいんだ。
Having seemingly lost patience with the detective, Matsunaga urged him onward discontentedly.
非常に言いにくいんですが。
まさか先輩、この映像が撮られたのは2003年以前、つまり5年以上前って言いたいんですか？
Dang it, Suva. Ben's shoulders slumped dejectedly. The young detective's keen insight was brilliant. Suva had said exactly what Ben had intended to say, however, having it said aloud and in such a straightforward manner only made the claim appear all the more dubious. Ben's careful planning on how to articulate his point had been all for nothing.
バカバカしい。小説の読みすぎではないがね。映像に映っている被害者5人の顔は一致しているんだ。あれが5年前のもののはずがない。そんなつまらないことを調べている暇があったら聞き込みの一つでもしたらどうだ、警部補。
ああ。
今のは聞かなかったことにする。それと後で話があるから会議が終わったら残りたまえ。
Ignorieren die tatsächlich den Punkt, dass auf dem einen Bild ein Turm ist und auf dem anderen nicht? Oh Mann, ey. After letting out the short sigh, Ben gave up and sat back down. Well, it's not like I expected them to believe me. Bitter and unwilling to accept defeat, Ben muttered that inside his head before returning listlessly fanning his face with his handheld fan. And yet, despite all the work he had done, if one were to ask what the absence of Roppongi Bill in the video signified, Ben would be unable to answer. Irgendwie habe ich einen Schluck auf. After I had found out that Nanami was alive, the doctor came to me and asked me a few simple questions. They wanted to make sure whether or not I was well enough to leave. I answered the questions to the best of my ability, then opted to leave the hospital before my mom came back. After that disgraceful behavior, I showed off in front of the entire country how was I supposed to face my family now. And if Nanami were to come back, I knew that I would be so happy I would immediately burst into tears all over again. And then, since she wouldn't know why I was crying, I would then take it seriously and start yelling at me not to worry about her, probably by calling me an idiot too. When I thought about that, I nearly fainted from the sheer embarrassment, and so instead of letting that happen, I decided to employ a strategic retreat. A nurse brought in the most disgusting breakfast of all time, and after chipping away at it slightly, I snuck out of the hospital room. I made my way down to the first floor and then into the lobby. The clinic hadn't opened yet, so the lobby that was usually packed with old people was completely deserted. I confidently walked towards the front entrance. Luckily for me, the automatic door opened, giving me a free rein to exit the building. The hospital staff might have gotten angry with me for leaving without asking them first, but I had to stay away from the hospital until everything calmed down. As for the medical fees, I left my mom a note telling her to go ahead and pay for it, so it should be fine. Despite the fact that I had stayed overnight at the hospital, I wasn't exhibiting any actual symptoms, and my mental state was doing much better after I had learned Nanami was alive. Making sure to keep an eye out for any ambushes by Shogun or Yua, I quickly made my way back to my base. I had made it back. My mental state had been done a completely 180 since I had last been at my base. Of course, I was feeling a lot better now. If only I could have let my past self know that. You let yourself get bait far too often, mate. You let yourself get bait far too often, mate. I rate 8 from 8. Nein, Alter, there's no reason for you to get so riled up, dude. Nanami's fine, Alter. Or something along those lines. Thinking back on it, yesterday really had been a living hell. Everything had just gone to shit. I'd gotten a weird phone call in the morning, then there had been an earthquake, then the data on my hard drive had disappeared, then I had to witness Ayase try to off herself right in front of me, then I'd gotten an email from Shogun, then he had sent me a severed hand. A severed goddamn hand. My mood plummeted in an instant. With a gulp, I turned my attention to the fridge. That's where the hand is. Before I'd left yesterday, I decided in my maniacal state to just put the hand in the fridge for the time being. If I had left it out somewhere, it could have started rotting. The smell of blood was also way too strong for me. There were all sorts of sci-fi anime and movies where, as long as they remained frozen, people could stay in a state of suspended animation for hundreds of years. Die Frage ist die Hand tatsächlich noch im Kühlschrank? Oder, naja, im Kühlschrank, in der Tiefkühltruhe. Das ist ja kein Kühlschrank. So that was pretty much what I was going for. Kühlschrank alleine reicht nicht aus, um sowas zu konservieren. I thought that if I could keep Nanami's arm fresh, she might have been able to get it surgery reconnected once she was back home safe. But if that was Nanami's hand, then who the hell did it belong to? And how would that explain the cell phone in Bengal? If I wasn't missing something, then it had to belong to Nanami. When I had called her, it hadn't rung on the cell phone held in the hand. Or maybe it had been all just part of Shogun's trap. Was it even possible to make such a perfect replica of Nanami's arm?
もう一度確かめてみるべきかも。
In truth, I really didn't want to. The entire hand thing grossed me out. Just thinking about it made me want to puke, even if it did belong to Nanami. But that didn't mean I could just keep it in my fridge forever. Not even my supply of cola stated it has that cold in it. I considered asking the police to come take it, but then I realized that they just suspect me of being the new gen culprit, even more than they had already did that is. It would practically be suicide to dial 110 and go, "Hello, yes, please come and take this person's severed hand off my hands, thank you." What should I do? Should I just throw it away? But supposing it was Nanami's arm, it really didn't sound like a good idea to throw it away. Hell, were you even allowed to throw away human hands like that? Does it constitute as burnable or not, or non-burnable trash? I tore at my hair. There was no point continuing to torture myself over it. I would just go ahead and check one more time, and that the banger was on her wrist and that she was holding her cell phone. Was it Nanamis or was it someone else? That was the question I hoped to answer. I stood in front of the refrigerator and gripped the handle. I closed my eyes and then took 1, 2, then 3 deep breaths. Answering the temptation to just call Remy and ask her to do it for me crept up into my mind, but I quickly shook it away. No matter how good of any or ally Remy was to me, there was no way she wouldn't freak out upon finding someone's hand in my fridge. And then if I managed to fuck up the explanation, she would fall out of laugh with me and then turn me into the police. I was gonna have to do this on my own somehow.
So
Oh fuck. I clenched my teeth, took 2 more breaths, and then I yanked on the handle with all my might. What? It was empty, entirely empty. I thought for sure that I had put in the hand in the yesterday, but it had been wrapped in aluminium foil. It should have been on the top shelf, and yet there was no sign of it. All that was there was a few bottles of cola and a bunch of rotten clementines, nothing else.
消えた。なんで？
Und ich würde sagen, an dem Punkt beende ich diese Folge jetzt. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal.